You just got thrown in, given a checklist, and however you wanted to complete those objectives was up to you. If you wanted to go all stealth, you could do that. In fact, that's probably the best idea. If you wanted to go in guns blazing and take advantage of all the crazy weapons at your disposal, that was an option too. Open world games are everywhere, but first-person open world games are actually something of an oddity. There are plenty of third-person open world games, but what about FPS? And you guys know I love a good FPS. What is up, everybody? Chaos here. Welcome to the channel. Welcome to the video. Today, I want to check out a list of the best FPS open world games of all time. I know that is a big title. So let me know in the comment section which of these you like the most, or if I missed your favorite, drop a like, make sure you guys are subscribed, and here we go. Let's start things off with Metro Exodus. Now, this is the third game in a very well-received Metro series, although this one takes a bit of a different structure than the first two. Metro Exodus is primarily a stealth survival game with some elements of survival horror thrown in as well as you play as a group of survivors looking for a new home. Of course, it's after a nuclear apocalypse. It forces them to live underground, and you'll venture across a deserted Russia in both linear and sandbox environments. You can craft new weapons, you can make new friendships with other survivors, and getting into intense fights with mutant creatures it's normal, and they still inhabit the surface, and some of them are terrifying. Metro Exodus is definitely different from the other Metro games, which were more focused on survival horror, but for what it's trying to do, I think it did it very well. I think it's a good pick if you're looking for some FPS open world action with some absolutely stunning visuals. Next up is Far Cry 5. Now, Far Cry games are very hit or miss now. They are, we know. For every Far Cry 3, there's a Far Cry 4. For every Blood Dragon, there's a Primal. Now, thankfully, Far Cry 5 was not only one of the good ones, it was one of the best ones. Released in 2018, it takes the series' signature open-world action to Montana, USA, and has you playing as a deputy in a fictional county that has been taken over by a doomsday cult. It is gorgeous. There is a ton of stuff to do. The story's a little hit or miss, and the characters seem to either be really good or really shallow, but the gameplay is what shines here. You've got all of the Far Cry best attributes like the big sandbox, the abundance of combat options, and the fun random things you can go do if you get bored. If you want to fish, go fish. If you want to hunt, go hunt. Far Cry 5 is a great game, and it's definitely one of the best open world FPS games of the 8th console generation, and now that we have the teaser for Far Cry 6 and it's Gus from Breaking Bad, well, I have high expectations. At number 8, and I cannot believe I am putting this on here, but it deserves its due. No Man's Sky. I know. Started out as one of the, if not the biggest letdown in gaming history, but it has since transformed into one of the most unique open world games on the market. Now, initially, it released in 2016. It had you traversing a massive galaxy and exploring new planets. You get to hunt for new resources, survive as long as you can, trade with other players, all that good stuff. Now, everybody knows the stories of how No Man's Sky launched full of broken promises and false advertising, but now that it's actually had a few years to patch everything up, it's in a good spot, and it's currently one of the best comeback stories in gaming history, if you ask me. If you're still bitter about the game's launch, I don't blame you. This was an unacceptable way to launch and market a game that you paid for, but if you're looking for a massive open world first-person game with a ton of replay value that you can play with your friends now, maybe, just maybe give No Man's Sky one more shot. Next up is Crysis. Now, Crysis isn't a truly open world game per se. It's got a lot of foundation for one though, and I think it's worth a shout out. Released in 2007, it was an absolutely gorgeous sci-fi FPS about a soldier equipped with futuristic weaponry as you dropped into various locations and you tried to complete objectives in any way that you see fit. The levels, they were big, and there wasn't a real set path. You weren't on rails per se. You just got thrown in, given a checklist, and however you wanted to complete those objectives was up to you. If you wanted to go all stealth, you could do that. In fact, that's probably the best idea. If you wanted to go in guns blazing and take advantage of all the crazy weapons at your disposal, that was an option too. Crysis does the player choice thing right, and it's an excellent game. Even 13 years later, still holds up very well. And I'm hoping the remaster does and shows modern sandbox developers how to do it, because I think we can all agree that a modern sandbox game, well, a lot of them would get lazy. I think Crysis is a good example of how you do it right. Do you guys remember how big of a deal Fallout 3 was back when it launched in 2008? A lot of modern gamers don't realize that. Today, Fallout is one of Bethesda's big moneymakers. But back in 2008, it was brand new. The first few Fallout games, first two Fallout games, were top-down RPGs that Bethesda had nothing to do with. But after that, they bought the IP in the mid-2000s. They decided to go big or go home, and they tried to do Fallout with what they had done with the Elder Scrolls a few years prior. Fallout 3 launched in 2008 and gave the world an amazing open-world post-apocalyptic adventure full of tough choices, interesting weapons to say the least, and fascinating lore. It's one of those games you will absolutely lose yourself in, and just about every aspect of it has a ton of detail to it. So why is it down at number 6, you may ask? Well, because it hasn't exactly aged well. And since this was pretty new ground, there have been a few games that did a little better, including another Fallout game we may talk about later in this video. But Fallout 3 is excellent, and I definitely recommend giving it a playthrough. At number 5, Prey. Yeah, Prey. Do you remember it? Prey with an E. The original Prey was released in 2006. It was this trippy horror FPS game that was super underrated, if you ask me. In 2017, we got a reboot of the concept, and it was released once again, just called Prey. And now this Prey plays very differently from the first one, but it was still good. It is less of a horror game and more of a suspenseful action RPG set in a sci-fi world. You explore a big space station, you learn more about the world you inhabit, and also try to stay away from the various alien life forms that have broken containment and are now screwing with you and the other crew members. Sounds like Alien, I know. As you progress through the game, you'll get to know more about your character, your friends, and your abilities, and there's a handful of possible endings that depend on the choices you make throughout the story. I recommend this one. If you like creepy sci-fi games, you might like this, and there's probably a good chance you never played it. At number 4, Arma 3. Released in 2013 on the PC. Arma 3 is one of the most technically impressive and immersive games I have ever seen. It is a realism-based tactical shooter set on a few massive maps, with the biggest one covering about 100 square miles of space. And now in the campaign, you play as a US soldier conducting various operations, and in the multiplayer, you can take that tactical shooting up with your team and go nuts on the maps. It is known for its photorealistic environments and its extremely deep gameplay, and since it's been released, it has maintained its position as one of the best PC exclusives on the market and one of the best simulation games ever made. If you want some eye candy or some super detailed tactical shooting, Arma 3 has you covered. Now we've arrived at Borderlands 2. Now, Borderlands was the game that arguably invented the looter-shooter genre, but Borderlands 2 was the game that perfected the formula. Released in 2012, Part 2 had you playing as the Vault Hunters, a group of fighters on a mission to liberate their planet from the evil Handsome Jack while also making plenty of money in the process. Borderlands 2 is known best for its writing, its art style, and the abundance of guns for you to discover and play around with. In total, there are a little less than 18 million different guns in Borderlands 2. You heard me right, 18 million. And I know a lot of those are admittedly just slight variations of the same weapon, but anybody who's played the game will tell you that's an absurd amount of content, and most of the guns feel totally unique from one another. It received critical acclaim, and it's still considered by many to be the gold standard of looter shooters, and I personally agree. Now, other games may come close and may have done something unique, but the genre of Borderlands 2 has not been topped in terms of overall content and replay value. At number 2, Fallout New Vegas. Now, I told you we'd be checking back with Fallout, and New Vegas is widely considered to be the best game in the entire series, and ironically, it's also not developed by Bethesda. New Vegas was developed by Obsidian Entertainment, who had to throw the whole thing together in 18 months. Now, many assets are recycled from Fallout 3, but Obsidian did their best to perfect the gameplay. They refined the entire world, and they really dug deep with the storytelling. New Vegas has one of the best stories in gaming history, and it's an excellent RPG as all the characters you meet feel unique, and all the side missions really make you feel like you're having an impact on the world around you. That's not even getting into the excellent world building, the fascinating open world, the real interesting factions, and all the intense battles you'll get into with hostile humans and these bizarre nuclear-infused creatures. Now, Fallout 3 may have laid the foundation for the modern Fallout game. New Vegas perfected it. And if you ask me, it's still the best game in the series and absolutely one of the best open world FPS games ever made. And finally, Far Cry 3. Finishing things off, the definitive Far Cry game, and in my opinion, the definitive open world FPS game. Released in 2012. Far Cry 3 had you playing as a dude on vacation who friends are kidnapped by pirates. They force him to try and survive on this tropical island while getting to know the locals and fighting off the others. The world building in Far Cry 3 is excellent. The map is amazing. It's huge. It's expansive. It's enough to get you lost in, but it's also distinct enough for you to really learn everything, and every area feels unique. The longer you play this game, the more you get to know the various factions involved. I mean, the story's good, and the longer you spend on the island, the better your survival skills get. The story of Far Cry 3 has aged very well. And if you look back at reviews from 2012, a lot of people actually criticize the story, but I really don't know why, because it's personally one of my favorites in the entire franchise. And I know it's a simple one, but there's so much room for player choice, and you really watch the characters change and grow as a result of your actions. Far Cry 3 is an excellent game that has aged extremely well, and if you have not played it, you need to. In my mind, it's the best open world FPS game ever made. And there you have it, my friends. Let me know one game that did not make the list that you felt was deserving, and I'll see you soon.